Ask the Podcast Coach for March 7th, 2026.
Let's get ready to podcast.
There it is. It's that music that means it's Saturday morning. It is time for Ask the Podcast Coach, where you get your podcast questions answered live. I'm Dave Jackson from the School of Podcasting, and joining me right over there is the one and only Jim Cullison from theaverageguy.tv. Jim, how's it going, buddy?
Greetings, Dave. Happy Saturday morning to you. I heard we may have traded back issues.
Yes.
Mine has been healed. And yours
came over here.
Later, we can talk about the importance of a good chair in podcasting. Not a good technique. I swapped chairs this week. So, whatever, desk chairs. I guess that's what we call them, right? Desk chairs. So, what do we call these things? What are they? Are they chairs?
Chairs, office chair.
Office chair.
You know. So yeah,
I feel like it should have a different name, but I guess maybe it doesn't. I don't know.
I'm pretty sure that I'm like 95% done with my cold, although my voice still is a little weird. Yeah, I just was sitting in my chair, and all of a sudden, some invisible, little person came up and just started pounding me in my kidney, and I'm like, what's? And then I moved, and it was one of the. Do you ever do that? And you're like, oh, wait a minute. And then it starts to go across your back. You're like, don't move, just go away. So that's always fun.
Careful, that's not a kidney stone. That can be, if it's depending on where it is, that could be a kidney stone too.
Never had one of those. So, we got to drop it out off the bucket. But you know what'll brighten your day when your back's not feeling good? That's right. A hot cup of Java. And this will be fun to see. Did Dave rewind? No, he did not. Oh, Dave, look at you. See, it's the ibuprofen. It's made me loopy. That coffee pour is brought to you by our good friend Mark over at podcastbranding.co.co, however you want to pronounce it. Mark is an amazing graphic artist, I tell you. And the beautiful thing about Mark is not only is he a great graphic artist, he's a podcaster. So you don't have to do that whole thing where like, well, it's kind of like a radio show, but it's for the internet. No, he knows what a podcast is. So you tell him what your show is about, the vibe you're going for, and let him do the marketing stuff. And he's going to come back, give you a couple options, and he's just going to make sure. I mean, every time I use him, I just go, wow, that's exactly what I was looking for. And I've used him for the podcast rodeo show. I've used him for this. If you go look at Ask the Podcast Coach, that's a Mark. And it's not just artwork. It could be a full website. It could be a PDF. It could be business cards. Anything you want to look good, there's only one place to go, and that is podcastbranding.co.
Big thanks to our good friend Dan Lefebvre over there, based on a true story podcast.com. This week's a good example. Dan doesn't do a podcast unless he's got content. He's said that several times on the show. He's a big time listener here. He's always hanging out with us on Saturday mornings. And, I mentioned Oppenheimer's been out there for a couple of weeks. If you missed it, it's still there. You can go out and listen to it. But Dan always says, like, hey, if I don't have content, I just don't release something. He kind of does it on his own schedule. So you can too. Remember, in podcasting, you can do whatever you want. So, Dan, thanks for your sponsorship. If you need something to listen to based on a true story, at basedonatruestorypodcast.com. And as always, Dan, thanks for your sponsorship.
And what was funny, again, Dan owns, in my brain, you say based on a true story, I'm like, oh, Dan Lefebvre. And there was some sort of charity rock thing going on. And it had Nuno from Extreme and all these people. One of the people there was Steve Stevens, who's the guitar player for Billie Eilish. Billie Eilish. That's funny. Billy Idol. Big difference. Just a little difference in the Billies there. Billy Idol. And he had a black T-shirt on that said, based on a true story. And I was like, hey, I sent Dan the picture. And I'm like, look, Steve Stevens is a fan. So that is something you can do in the event you have some sort of, I'll give you an example. On Monday's show, I'm interviewing, her name is Jana Marie from the Big Lash Energy Show. And she, along with Joe Pulizzi, who's a podcaster, and Home Depot, own the picture. Wow, really? Own the color orange. And so she was talking about how there was a picture of Alanis Morissette in an orange leather jacket. And she's like, look, Alanis is a fan because she's got orange on, or Drake or whoever. So I was like, that's kind of a fun way to do that. But I'm dying to know. Let's stick. I'll take chairs for 200, Alex.
Nice.
You changed chairs because you were having back issues. Yeah.
I was having back issues, and listen, I bought one of those Home or Office Depot chairs, right? That was $179, whatever, all mesh, lots of air to because you sit in these chairs a long time podcasting, and you're around equipment that's generating heat. And I don't know about you, maybe it's just me that can admit that, but sometimes you stand up and you're a little sweaty, right?
Yeah,
kind of deal. So, I've tried different things by putting a fan out in front of the desk. So, just kind of keep some air moving and some of those kinds of things. But those office chairs that are kind of mesh based may or may not have the best support for you. And they've got a variety of kind of support things. But I think with office chairs, you really get what you pay for, right? I mean, you can spend $3,000 easy on one of those chairs. You can also buy the cheap ones for $79 on sale. I've gone through a couple of those. My good friend, the late Mike Howard of JPEG to Raw, he podcasted for like 3 years with a folding chair. A metal church like you get at church, right? And I'd always say, Mike, that can't be good for you. And in those days, Mike was a little big like us, and it was like, Mike, that you can't, Yeah, and he never changed. He's like, Jim, this is what I like. This is what's comfortable. Okay, that being said, Gallup, where I work, was getting rid of some office equipment. We're changing over, got some new stuff coming in. The old stuff is going out. And I thought it would be time to pick up a new chair, newly used. But, we buy these $500 to $1,000 office chairs, and they last a long time. Right. And they're really ergonomic, and they're super comfortable. So for the low price of $10, I was able to pick up a probably $500 or $600 when it was new office chair. Man, does it make a difference, from it being comfortable. So I think my podcasting coach advice would be, we spend oftentimes, and not as much as we used to when we think about equipment, but we spend a couple $100 on a mixer or on a audio interface or a mixer or a microphone. You can easily spend $500 on a microphone. I think comfort and support are important. If you're going to be sitting at a desk for long periods of time, which what a lot of podcasters do, I think an office chair upgrade may be one of those things that you invest in. Because let's be honest, most of us have all the equipment we need, right? We don't need a new microphone, some of those kinds of things. But maybe you're sitting in a really crappy office chair. Dave, do you think your chair might be leading to some of your back issues today, or is it just something else? Did you just?
It's probably something else, but somebody mentioned lumbar support. This definitely has it. I do have one of those mesh things because who likes butt sweat? So that Jeff says. I've used an embodied chair for years, fixed my back issues while sitting. Not cheap, but totally worth it. But if we look at just yesterday, 8 to 5, I'm sitting in this chair minus, an hour for breaks. I go eat dinner. I come back. I'm in the chair from 7 to 1 o'clock. I was doing a lot of editing yesterday. So that's, whatever, over 10 hours a day in the chair. And, then we go and spend money on headphones and everything else. And I'm like, yeah, but if you can't get in the chair, you have a problem. Danny says, I have a Libernovo. I believe that's how you say that. Not cheap at all, but I spent a lot of time. Yeah, exactly. At the desk. That's one of those things where if you think about it, John says, I want a lazy boy office chair. There you go. That reclines. That would be amazing. Although then I would sleep and I would not get any work done. Let's see. El Circe says, someone once told me spend money on shoes and the bed mattress because you're going to spend a lot of time of your life. In both, I think office chairs are right up there. Yeah. So, don't, that's not the time to skimp. Same thing with like microphones and things like that. Uncle Marv says, I upgrade my chair every other year. the price keeps, going up, unfortunately. Last chair was a Work Pro Quantum, he said, hitting his microphone. Ooh, not only is it the Work Pro Quantum, it's the Work Pro Quantum 9000 ergonomic for $500. Ouch to the wallet, joy to the back. So,
yeah, 500 is about the, like, for a really good chair, 500
yeah.
is like the starting point, right? That's then they get, and I priced some out the other day, 700, 900, 1200. You can get a $3,000 chair, right?
Yeah.
Now you get, one of my kids had a gaming chair that you don't have to go full lazy boy. This one just had a footrest that popped out from underneath it, so you could, you could just get the feet out there, and that's kind of convenient. I wouldn't mind one that plugs in or has a battery, and you could get, with the back issues that I had last fall and the spring, that would heat up the lower back spot for me. Like I've all of a sudden I'm counting on my car's heater, the seat heaters in the car, to be my physical therapy device lately. You get in the car, go on the heat to get the heater, the seat heaters hooked up for that. I just think it might be good take a look at your office equipment and make sure if you're sitting there a lot, it may be worth it to make that investment in a better chair if that's what you're looking for. This one is not mesh; it's completely padded all the way, and I realized the airflow is not going to be there, but I wanted more support, more padding, and I wanted a higher back. Dave, what do you think of these gamers that have like the throne, they sit in these
I was just going to ask about that, because I have, if I pulled this up, I have a headrest, but like I noticed I slump a lot in my chair, which is probably not good. So if I had, I think Ralph said it's all about proper posture. So
it's not like you're going to get, in our cars, we have those headrests. They're not headrests. They're to keep your head from snapping back in an accident, right? That's what they're for. In my office chair, I'm not going to get into an accident where my head is like flying around. So do you need the throne chair coming up, behind your head, sticking up? Do you need that?
Yeah, that's me. I've always wondered about that. I'm like, I think I just need something that goes up to my shoulders, and even that, because I'm a slumper. Chris from castahead.net, chair or herniated disc surgery, pay me now or pay me later. Yeah.
Very true.
So,
true, Chris.
Craig over at AI Goes to College. I bought a Steelcase Leap V2 a few years ago, and it's been awesome. Refurbished from Crandall Office Furniture. Be careful about gaming chairs. The ergonomics are not great for office work. Yeah, they're probably meant to. I see some of them. They're on the floor. Like they're meant to be put on the floor. Well, I guess every chair is on the floor, but I mean, like there's no legs, and you're meant to be kind of eye level with the TV. So, it's you need your back. It comes in handy, and it's one of those things.
You don't know, like with back pain, you don't know, us older folks, and maybe there's a few of them in the chat room who know this pain. Once you have it, you're scared to death of it coming back. Like I am now at a spot where I'm like, I'm not even moving fast anymore. I'm just going to slowly walk around places and be super careful when I'm working out and some of those kinds of things. Cause I'm like, I don't want that pitch nerve coming back.
Yeah.
And
when I was
in my case, I have a loose vertebrae. So I have to be really, really careful because that nerve will slide in between the vertebrae and then get pinched. So I just need to be careful too. The good news is massage therapy is what hooked me up and set me up really well. So now I have a mandatory massage, at least once a month.
There you go.
Which is not a bad thing.
My problem was when I was in I was at least 21. I was working in a grocery store and I went to pull a, big giant bucket out of a sink, and it just shredded my back. And then I had to mop the floor. That was the fun thing. And my back really hurt. So we went out drinking. And it turns out you don't feel your back pain if you've had a few whiskeys. And then we went dancing. And so I was feeling no pain. And I woke up in the morning and could not move. So I do not recommend medication with some black velvet whiskey. I'm like that. No. That was not. That was
generally not. No.
Seems like a lifetime ago. Hey, I always say, if you listen, if I have it set up at the end of the show, you'll hear me say, hey, if you're not listening live, you can always leave a voicemail. And hey, we actually got one. So, which actually ties into a lot of what was going on with Reddit today. So hopefully this is going to work.
Currently, I'm using Zoom to record my podcast, but because it's internet based, sometimes there's glitches. So, what do you suggest is a more stable recording platform that I can use? And also, what equipment is really good? I normally it's either just me or me and one, maybe two guests. I'd love to hear back. Thanks. Bye.
Thank you. That was Tamala. And so here's the thing. It's kind of sad in 2026. There is no like go-to, I'm super confident this will work solution. I usually say, well, if all else fails, Zoom. But if Zoom, because Zoom isn't worried about audio quality, they're worried about making sure that what you said gets to the other person. So if you're talking to somebody and that's the problem. That means your internet probably isn't that great. Now, in theory, right, Riverside and Descript, and I think StreamYard, do they do local recording? Do you know, Jim?
Yeah, they do.
Yeah.
That'd be my recommendation, StreamYard. I like them. No.
Yeah, that actually would probably be. And now the bad news is it's expensive, but I looked at their prices. Unless you're doing super duper stuff, because I always hear about these $800 bills and stuff, and I'm like, well, how much are you streaming? But if you're doing like one a week, it's at least the last time I looked, it was more expensive, but it wasn't that much more expensive. But you get kind of peace of mind knowing that there we go. And I always forget about this one too. Danny from Captivate. I'll stand by Boomcaster every day of the week. One issue, guest internet upload speed, is almost in almost 4 years. But also your setup matters too, And so, and I always say, like, try one, and if it works for you, stick with it. And when it kind of goes down the drain, then go to something else. The other thing that I wanted to talk about is we're all looking for this I just want to buy one company and have them edit my show, do remote recording, and do the show notes, and wash my car, and do the laundry, and grocery shop. And it's just like, so I saw this on Reddit, and I had a situation that I want to talk about in a second, but let's preface that with this. And the person says, Riverside has crashed on me 4 times in 3 months, and I'm done. And this is like the typical Riverside thing. I never see people over there going, I love Riverside. And I never see them going, I love Descript. It's always, but he said, I need to talk about this because every best podcasting recording tool lists Riverside at the top, and I feel like I'm losing my mind. I switched to Zencaster for 6 months. The first 3 months were fine. Then it started mid-interview, crash on episode 34, and I lost 24 minutes. And he said, so what I switched to was Zoom. Zoom for recording. Yes, the audio quality with local recording is when the local recording is enabled, it is 90% as good as Riverside, and it's never crashed on me in 50 plus recordings. Not sexy, but it works. Then he edits into Descript. He hosts on Buzzsprout. He said, I know some people love Riverside and have had 0 issues. That's definitely a thing. Maybe I'm the exception. And that kind of goes back to what Danny was talking about, that, maybe it's something with your setup. But if you're on the fence, test it thoroughly before committing to your show. Yeah, I don't know if I was doing any kind of recording like that. I don't know that I'd be buying the yearly plan on Riverside. But that's just something. So I bring this up about this all-in-one thing. So I do a thing at the School of Podcasting every Friday. We hop on a Zoom call, and it's called Lunch with Dave, and we talk about what's going on. If people have questions, it's kind of like this show, but it's just for School of Podcasting people. And when it's done, I get the video, and I make my videos for the School of Podcasting in this tool called Tela. It's kind of like Loom on steroids. And one of the things it now does is it creates a transcript and chapters, and the chapters are really good. And so I was like, okay, so I go in and I cut out the beginning where we're talking about the weather or whatever, and cut out the end where we've drifted off of podcasting. Right? I get it down to just the meat and potatoes. I have it generate the chapters, and then I can download an audio file. And then, so what I do is I throw the audio file into Pod Chapters, and they have a great tool where you can get those chapters that you made and just copy them, and it shows the time and the title, right? So, and I go into that. I can also download the transcript. And so I download the transcript, which takes all of, 10 seconds. I download the audio, which takes maybe 30 seconds. I throw it into Pod Chapters, and I don't need Daniel to make my transcript. I just upload the one I got, and then I go, oh, by the way, here's my outline. Paste that in there and add a piece of artwork and download it. So it takes me, 5 minutes to make my audio with chapters, et cetera, et cetera. And then that goes out to a private feed for just members of the School of Podcasting. So I used 3 platforms. I used Zoom, I used Tela, and then I copy that, and you can watch the replay on Tela as well with the chapters, so you can skip it around because it's an hour long and we go all over the place. And I got my audio, and I was like, look, I get the all-in-one thing, but it really wasn't that hard to have 3 tabs open, if that, to get my work done. And I'm like, we're all obsessed over like, I just want one bill. And if we look at the price for Tela and the price for Pod Chapters and whatever concoction you need, whatever configuration, it's probably going to be about the same price. And so I don't know. Are you, Jim, on the pursuit of the all-in-one solution?
No. Yeah, listen, I understand it's frustrating to have got to go to different sites. I upload it to Auphonic, and then I use Otter AI. So I have 2 transcripts, which actually for the AI work is a little bit better. You can give it both transcripts, and it'll compare them, and you get a little bit closer to what it actually is. Then I'm using some AI stuff, some ChatGPT for those pieces. And yeah, could they all be in one? Yeah, I do find, when you're an all-in-one solution, you get a lot of just average stuff, right? You're not using the best of what's available out there, but it works too. It works for some people. So no, I definitely have a variety of services that I use. Dave, to throw into the mix on this is your favorite site, YouTube. Just this week, a buddy of mine said, hey, would you check out my video? And so I went over and took a look at it, and I was looking in his description, and his timestamps weren't very good. And they now have this feature in YouTube it's called Ask, and you can ask anything you want about it's AI, right? I mean, it's just AI. Let's just be really clear. But I quickly said, hey, what would be a better version of the timestamps, of the chapter headings? And it spit out for me, and I said, make sure they're optimized for YouTube, a YouTube description. It spit it out for me, and I copy and pasted it and sent it to him. I said, try these. This looks a little bit better than what you have out there. So you may actually also consider, if you're not subscribing to an AI service for your podcast, or a ChatGPT or a Gemini or a Claude, you may consider uploading it to YouTube. Leave it unlisted if you don't want to be on YouTube, but then go back and use the YouTube AI tools to create transcripts, or to create shorts, or to create you don't have to, they have a short service as well. But don't forget about some of the AI services now available on YouTube. I was surprised to see those.
Yeah, Dan says, jack of all trades, master of none. For sure. Danny from Captivate, and I just thought about it. I could let Captivate make my chapters if I wanted to, because that's where I'm doing the private podcast with. The thing with all-in-one, if something goes wrong with one part, it usually affects the use of the rest. He says, I far prefer separate platforms. Ralph is like, what you're really saying is building a system. This is where I see so many content creators struggling. This could be your superpower if it's done well. Yeah, or have you heard about OpenClaw yet? Apparently anything you want done, OpenClaw will wash your car. It's this tool, and it's you can get it to do everything. And I'm like, because I saw somebody said, have you ever thought of automating that with AI stuff? And I'm like, the time it takes to write the prompt to get it to work, I get it if I get it right. But I'm like, it's like last night I was trying to there's a part in Monday's School of Podcasting where I busted into a little, Preacher Dave. I was like, and I actually stole it from this show. The whole about every podcast, every conversation doesn't need to be public. And I just needed some church organ, behind the pastor kind of stuff. I went to TuneReel. I went to Audio Blocks. Could not find what I was looking for. So I went to Suno, and I finally got something kind of close to what I was looking for. And I was like, yeah, this is where AI, it may eventually get what you want, but it took a while to get there. So I know sometimes you're like, yeah, I automated it. Great. How long did it take you to automate it? 2.5 days. I'm like, okay, I get it. So I'm not poo-poo AI. Craig, who knows a lot about AI, says, be very careful with OpenClaw. You can get into trouble very quickly. And I think, Ralph, was it you that used the Claude coworker thing on your computer and it like messed up his Mac? But I'm just, yeah. Also, OpenClaw will rotate your tires and improve your love life. Well, there you go. Sign me up. Uncle Marv says, I would love to get down to 3 tools. I have 7 if you include the Rodecaster. But to me, it was like, and I do this a lot with editing. I use Resound. I believe it's .fm. It might be .com. And they just cut out ums. And I can blow through a file in, a couple minutes and get rid of like 300 ums. And yes, I know I could do that in Descript, but I have people that aren't where English isn't their first language, and sometimes it's not an it's actually a word with a different kind of accent. So I'm real careful about that. And then I've been using the Waves Regen tool to just remove room noise, even though I have a plugin for it, because it does it removes noise, it levels things out, and it's fairly cheap. It's like $5 a month if you're not doing a ton of stuff. So I don't know. I'm just not. I feel like I'm weird because I don't want it all in one. I'm like, no, I kind of like the tools I have. And when I'm doing editing, like I am having it process a file as I'm editing episode number 2, because I'm doing multiple episodes at a time, and then I'm uploading to Libsyn while I'm in this case for this client, because they haven't moved to Captivate yet, but they are. And so I'm, doing show notes while that's processing, and you get that kind of a groove going on in a while. John Germango has a question. He says, my co-host is having an issue with her video freezing. She has a new PC with Windows 11. We use StreamYard. It seems to freeze every 15 seconds. Man, how annoying is that? Her upload speed is 300 megabytes per second.
That's fast.
I'm sure you've done this already. Make sure everything is closed, including Dropbox. She's got enough speed.
Maybe could be a hardware issue. So it sounds like a memory issue. So you may want to run there are some tools that you could run to kind of check the hardware on that. If the upload speed's ample and you can run a speed test and the speed test is coming back okay and it's consistent, you want to make sure the ISP. But if it's freezing, oftentimes that's a hardware related issue.
Yeah, he says her audio is fine.
Yep. So it could be you want to check if this is Windows, friends. So you want to check the drivers.
Yeah.
In between the, oftentimes these cameras now have their own software, right? They call them drivers, but it's just really it's an entire software suite. Like any Logitech webcam comes with a whole suite where you can adjust the cameras and such. So my recommendation would be to get started, John, is to have your task manager open and running while this is happening, and see how much memory is being used, see what the hard drive usage is, see what the CPU usage is while this is happening, and run it a couple times to kind of get some ideas of where maybe the problem might be. Again, it's probably something. It could be a software issue. In your troubleshooting of these things, just a reminder, when you're troubleshooting these things, one thing at a time. You might want to completely remove the camera. If it's just video, completely remove the camera. You might try to move that camera to a different USB port. You could be having a USB port that's having issues, right? But you need to rule out a few things. You want to make sure the video is not contending with other resources, or the video itself is not consuming all resources, you might see as you turn the video on that the CPU spikes and it doesn't come down for a while. So you want to just check one thing at a time. That's where I would start is open up that task manager, see what's happening, make sure that she's got enough RAM in there, make sure we don't have a RAM problem, make sure that there's not a hard drive. You'll see it right to the hard drive in that task manager. So that's kind of where I'd start.
Yeah, I found I knew it was. I thought it was Ralph. It was John. He said Cloud Cowork sent me to Apple to reset my computer. He said, but the Claude issue was my fault. So, yeah, you need to. And Craig's saying I would love to hear more about this. So I want to understand the risks. And yeah.
Well, OpenClaw though is an open source. It's like LLM or LM Studio, or it's like Olama, where you're downloading those models directly to you.
Yeah.
By the way, this is going to be the next source of malware. So friends, friends, let's just like right now, the curation of those LLMs are pretty good. Like if you're getting them, if you're using LM Studio, if you're using OpenClaw, oftentimes you're grabbing them from the source, and they kind of guard and gatekeep those sources. So, you can't get in trouble. But friends, they're going to figure out how to inject malware into these LLMs as you're using them at some point. And just be cautious about, just like with anything, just be cautious where you're getting your models from, what's it doing. If you think it was bad back in the days of, spyware and malware,
man.
Imagine if an LLM provider gets compromised and then it could inject and add anything to your PC and then run AI, just consume your entire computer for running AI for their benefit, right? So just keep eyes wide open, friends, on some of these. Make sure you're the source where it's coming from. Some of those kinds of things.
Yeah, they're going to be mining Bitcoin on your computer or something.
Well, I think actually, maybe, but I actually think you'll become an endpoint processor for AI for someone, and they'll be sending you things to run. You'll have no. It's almost like Bitcoin, except it's AI. So they'll be sending things to you to process or whatever, or worse. Listen, an LLM is the perfect thing to spy on you. I mean, it can do just about anything. In the coming months or years, we're going to see a lot of this AI injected into the operating systems. So, friends, I mean, Microsoft's going full bore in creating whatever the next version of Windows is going to be, whether it's going to be 12 or 11 or whatever it's going to be. But there's going to be a lot of helpful, and I put those in quotes, a lot of helpful AI embedded into the operating system. And it will be helpful, but buckets. We need to be careful. Like, then you really need to be careful. If you thought you could get spied on before, like, it's not Terminator days, but you got to just be careful.
I go back. I need to go find a clip where Todd Cochran, RIP, is like, hey, we got to be careful. Like, they're going to put ads in this thing, and now you got a kingmaker. You want to be on the top of the suggestion? Yeah, you got to pay the king. And I've heard that they're not, which I knew this was coming, but they're going to start putting ads in, these different AI tools. So when you ask, hey,
for sure,
how do you do such and such? It's going to go, oh, well, the best way to do that is to use this coupon and get one free. I'm like,
for sure.
It's
the worst kind of Truman Show, like, in the Truman Show where they were just, just imagine that in AI, right? Oh, you should buy some Ovaltine. It's not round, it's oval, and
yeah, it's going to be weird to see where all this goes. Ralph says, someone needs to say this AI makes mistakes and we've got to stop relying on it as the absolute truth. It's so much better though. I'll give you an example. I saw in Hindenburg where if you click on the chapter section and go to import, it's looking for a file to import the chapters. And I was like, I didn't know this was an option. So I went to Google and I said, what format do I need to import chapters into Hindenburg? And it came back with basically just not even close to an answer and a bunch of ads. I went to Perplexity and it said, oh, it needs a text file. Not rich text, but actual TXT file, blah, blah, blah. Now, the file I had didn't work, but I was like, it's still, I never knew you could import chapters into Hindenburg. So if I had the right format, I export my file from Tela in this case, and I can export my chapters. If I can get that in the right format, I can just import my chapters and I'm done. So if you haven't figured it out, I really like chapters. I'm like the king of chapters. So we shall see. And Jody's in the chat room. Jody is going to be, I forget, put it in the chat room. She's going to be a judge on some swanky award show thingy. I saw it was her and I think James Cridlin and a couple other people. So congrats on that. And then Ralph says, that's why I have a real issue with all the AI slop, because it may often just be bold-faced lies and people are just accepting it. The thing, they were talking about this on Podcasting 2.0. I think, because there is a pushback when people know, they said it was funny because Adam was saying how his wife had some friends that found some woman singing some sort of Christian song. And they were like, oh man, sing it, girl. And then Adam's wife is like, you guys do know that's AI, right? And they all, who like seconds ago were like, this is a great song, what an amazing singer, went, I hate it. And it was like, I remember growing up, my brother hated the band Kiss. And so he would purposely put on a song. He'd come in and like, hey, this is pretty good. Who is it? And we'd go, it's Kiss. Ha! And he'd like, oh, I hate it. And it was like so fun. But I think not so much our generation, but like maybe our kids who've never heard actual real humans may not care. We shall see. Jody says there's a program called Driver Easy that will make updating drivers on Windows machines super easy. Oh, yeah. That's something I don't miss being on a Mac. So
yeah, you don't have those kind of fun driver issues. Although I'll be honest, driver issues have really become a thing of the past. We just don't see them as much as we used to. Oftentimes it's a misconfigured device, or if you do, Windows gets super confused if you swap USB ports with equipment.
Yeah.
It'll be like, oh hey, wait a minute, give me a second, right, to catch up. So there's some of those, back to the troubleshooting issues, some of those. Yeah,
Rich Graham has a good point. Make sure there's enough hard drive space.
For sure.
With John's freezing video. Because I've had times when I'm like, what's going on? Because all of a sudden my Mac will start acting kind of weird, and I'll go in and all those Zoom meetings you've been having are stored on your hard drive, and you go, oh, I don't need these. And all of a sudden the weird choppiness goes away. It's going to be interesting to see here.
John, you'll have to check back in with us. Check those. You can always reach out to me too if you need some help, but check all those devices. I'd love to hear back from you on if you find a solution, what it was. We'd love to hear from you.
Yeah. Jody says, I'm one of the judges for the International Sound Awards. This is her 4th year doing that. Very cool. I didn't know James was involved. I could have sworn, I could be wrong, but I think I saw him saying he was going to do that. So
James who?
James, Mr. Cridlin. Yeah.
I've never heard of him before.
There we go. See, now we started it. Andrew says Kiss is terrible. Oh. I will say this. When I go back and listen to old Kiss, some of it's kind of creepy. Christine 16, sung by a guy that was probably 22 at the time. I'm like, it's a little creepy. I know, shocking. The Revelations, Gene Simmons is kind of creepy. You think? Yeah. Danny says, I love it when someone loves something and then they hear it's the thing they hate and they switch back. I did that with my sister. She liked she liked sausage but hated kielbasa. And so I made her some sausage, and as she was halfway through it, I said, do you like that? She's like, yeah, it's good. Who is this? And I go, oh, by the way, it's kielbasa. And she literally spit it out. So weird. John said, oh, here we go. The biggest problem from Craig over at AI Goes to College with Macs is that for some strange reason, it can be a bear to get printers to work reliably. Yeah. Okay. Here's the other thing. The one problem I have with Macs, and it's such a pain in the butt, it's easy to fix, but if you want to watch Netflix or Hulu on my Mac Mini, I have to turn off acceleration. It's the weirdest thing ever, which is fine, and it works until I go into Canva and I want to do background erasing, and it's like, hey, you need to turn your accelerator back on, and every time you do that, you have to restart Chrome. Again, that's something I find more annoying than switching from one program to the other. It's just like, oh, what's going on? So, yay, computers. What are you going to do? We have a giant discussion on Kiss going on in, of course,
the world's greatest chat room.
So thank you guys for being here. Let's do this now while we're here. Let's thank our awesome supporters. I'm praying that I rewound this. I'm going to guess. Oh, I did. Look at me. You can be an awesome supporter by going to askthepodcastcoach.com/awesome and be like these fun-filled people, since she's in the room, Jody over at voiceoversandvocals.com. If you need some voiceover, there you go. Her voice, it's like butter. I'm here to tell you. Castahead.net, content creators accountant. Who else we got? Indie Drop-In. Home Gadget Geeks, I've heard of that guy before. You can be an awesome supporter by going to askthepodcastcoach.com/awesome. And this show is brought to you by theschoolofpodcasting.com, now hosted on Podpage. We just did a thing at Podpage. We can now import your WordPress. And I was the test to get over, because I had like 19 years of caca behind that thing. So use the coupon code COACH when you sign up, and remember that comes with a 30-day money-back guarantee. And if you need some honest feedback on your show, check out podcasthotseat.com. And I just mentioned Podpage, now in different languages. We did that. We launched WordPress migration. We have the auto linking. So now if you put in a keyword and that keyword is anywhere else in your site, it'll launch to that. So check out trypodpage.com. And if you need some more Jim Collison, and who doesn't, just fly on over to theaverageguy.tv and check out Home Gadget Geeks. And it's time for the Wheel of Names. This is always hear Bill Murray in my head. Left is right. Dogs and cats living together. Because
Cinderella story. Cinderella story.
So will it be Max over at Aviation News Talk, or easy for me to say, Ralph from AskRalph.com, or Craig from AI Goes to College? Well, we will spin the wheel if I can find my mouse, and the winner is, speaking of freezing things, it's the one and only Chris from castahead.net. If you're looking for a producer, if you need editing, it's all there at castahead.net. And Chris, thanks for being an awesome supporter. And if you're listening to the show right now and you're like, hey, these guys kind of saved me some time. They saved me some money. They saved me maybe even a headache. Who knows? Or maybe we just kept you educated. Well, maybe throw a few shekels our way. Go over to askthepodcastcoach.com/awesome. And if I go to that one, there we go. Our next question is from our good friends at Reddit. He said, are these bots? How the heck did someone find me in Hong Kong? He says, so for reference, 4 episodes, so brand new, and a few shorts into my podcast. A fun back and forth with a good friend talking about nerdy topics like game franchise, D&D, and movies. It's based in Podunk, Iowa. Only advertising I've done is through some Facebook posts, and I've made a few offhand mentions on Reddit posts. It had 63 downloads across the episodes, which made me happy enough. So 4 into 63 is 10, carry the 1 divided by pi. Yeah. My question, though, today I see 2 downloads from Hong Kong and 1 from Germany. Like, for real? Or do bots sometimes get a hold of these? Feels strange thinking someone is listening in another country. And, Jim, thoughts? Do you have people in other countries listening to you?
Oh, sure.
Yeah, that was
maybe that I don't want to sound. I'm going to sound like a jerk for a second. So maybe I
need a jingle.
Jerk dispensation. Like maybe 15 years ago, that would have been weird, or 10 or 20, or 40. Like it's global, friend. It's a global reach. It doesn't surprise me. Someone found it, picked it up. Could it be a bot? 100% could be a bot. I don't until those numbers get a little bit bigger. I wouldn't really worry about it. Just chalk it up as cool. Like, oh yeah, no, nice, very, very cool. And then move on. I don't. It's just things have gotten so global. That wouldn't surprise me one bit.
Yeah, I know. One of the things that first got me hooked was when I took my blog and turned it into a podcast. I got a voicemail from a guy from Nuremberg, Germany, and I just kept hitting that because he's like, "It's Michael Van Laar from Nuremberg, Germany," and I'm like, "Did he say Germany? Yeah. Like, wait, what?"
It's different if they send you a voicemail or they send you an email. That's different, right?
Right.
Because that takes some engagement. That takes, somebody doing something, which is hard to get people to do. So, I wouldn't, that the downloads and the regions and some of those kinds of things, smile when you see them. It's cool that you get it. It's good to know that you're getting out and some of those kinds of things. But the engagement you're looking for is that whatever that they use the coupon code, or they send you an email, or they leave you a voicemail. I think that's the very engaging. That's kind of what you're looking for.
Yeah, looking at the School of Podcasting stats in Captivate, I'm in, I think it said 63 countries. So I could download these, but it's weird when you're like, I have one in Tanzania.
That's for sure.
Yeah, I have 9 in South Africa. I've got 2 in Morocco. 1 in Egypt. 704 in China. That's the one that always makes me scratch my head.
That's bots for sure.
Because
I'm just kidding. Probably.
But I mean, couldn't it be like to me, China is like a walled garden, but I guess people in China probably also know how to work a VPN.
For sure.
Sure. So you never know. But Mark says, I just saw him. Here we go. From practicalprepping.info, 15% of our downloads are from other countries, and it stayed really consistent. Yeah. And then Andrew says, it is the World Wide Web. We've heard of that. Ralph says, I got people in well over 90 countries. And then this is interesting. YouTube is now dubbing my shows in multiple language, and I get comments in other languages. This is
a cool feature of YouTube now. If you haven't checked this out, so upload your video, let it run through all its stuff, and it'll run an English transcript if that's what you're creating it in. And then once that transcript is done, go over to the languages tab, and it will tell you the status of the first transcription that's being done. Click on that and publish it, and then it will start. You have to have it enabled. You need to enable this your first time, but it'll start dubbing it in. I think there are 20 or 25 languages now that are there. The cool part about that, well, it's not you, by the way. It's not your voice. It's somebody else's, right? They're using an AI voice for this. YouTube in the past has said that in the future they're going to use your voice, which will be interesting so they'll make, I'm assuming they'll do a voice sample, then they'll AI that sample, and then they'll run that against and put it through the language filters to do it. It's not instant, friends. It can take a day or two for all these videos to update with those dubs in them. So don't think like something's broken. For a while, I was clicking on things. Why isn't this?
Oh man,
it takes a couple days.
Yeah, give YouTube at least a day, because I know I wanted to download the town hall from Podpage, and I mean it was 10 hours, and it's like, nope, can't download it yet because they're doing, all their HLS stuff to it or whatever. And it wasn't until the next day that I could download it, edit it, and I wanted to, basically I was going to swap it out because there was like 20 seconds where we didn't realize there was a delay, and we're just waiting there for somebody to answer. And we're like, oh, oops, because we were using Restream in that case. And I wanted to edit that out, and it was like, okay, I guess I'll do that. And by that time, Brendan had already promoted it, and I was like, you know what? We're going to stick with the one with the weird. They can skip past it. But yeah, Dan says, VPNs are a thing. Chris says, we are huge. I'm huge in Kazakhstan. And then Craig says, lots of folks in Chinese. Yeah, do this thing called VPNs. Also, if you get close to Hong Kong, the Great Firewall of China seems to be a bit relaxed. At least that's the way it was when I used to visit. And then Rich says, YouTube just announced you can upload thumbnails specific for different languages. Oh, that's interesting. And then Ralph, who does a Christian podcast, says, it's really cool when I get those weekly jihadist comments on my Christian sermon channel. I just keep sharing love anyway. Yeah, so that's Craig says, we teach English, so we get voice messages from all over the globe, notably India, Ukraine, Japan, Uzbekistan, and I don't even know where Uzbekistan is. I thought you just made that one up. So, yeah. Ray wants to know if we can start the show over. Sure. Ask the podcast coach for no, I'm just kidding. Danny says, I enjoy digging into my analytics for specifics of cities and towns. Always fun to see where you could have a pop-up meeting. That's really it. Because, I mean, on one hand, and you can see cities in Captivate. I know you can see cities in most media hosts. If it's not free, we'll show you the cities. So if you want to do a tour, if you wanted to do a live meetup, and again, on Monday's show with Jana Marie from Big Lash Energy, she's done some live events, and that's one of the ways you can figure out where to have them is see where is my audience, because Joe Salsihai from Stacking Benjamins did a tour, and he picked the tour and then looked to see where his audience was and was like, oops, but he still had people there. What he found in that was he went to comedy clubs because they're set up to have an audience, and they have a PA system and that whole 9 yards, and I think he did it on like a Tuesday night and got it for dirt cheap and split some of the money with the door money with the comedy club. So if you ever want to do a live appearance, that's it's not an easy way, but it's definitely a way to monetize. I think we all would struggle with our ego about doing a live event because we fall into Garth Brooks mode, who was convinced nobody was going to come to his concert in it's not is it Grand Central Park? Or Grand Central is the train station.
That's the station, Central Park.
Central Park in New York, and almost 1 million people showed up. Ralph says the Chinese version of the School of Podcasting could really work. Yeah, sure, exactly. Yeah. Something else we should probably. It's one of those things. I'm kind of investigating this guy, and the problem is I don't know who it is, but. I will, here, let's see if we go to his YouTube channel. What happened was, I know, yeah, here it is. Tyler Oliveira. He was the guy, from what I understand, that did the investigation about the daycare centers in, was it Minneapolis? That had all sorts of Minnesota. And so there's a video of this, I'm not making this up, where he went to some little thing in India, and it is a custom that once a year, and people save their poop for months, and they all get together and throw poop at each other. And this is kind of a weird, well, I shouldn't say weird, it's a sacred thing to those people. And so he goes to different cultures and studies their culture. Now, he doesn't always, he shows the good stuff, but he does tend to lean on the negative. So, when you're scamming money for daycare centers, that's not a good thing. And what's interesting is he was on Patreon, and he went to a couple places in New Jersey that have a very strong Hasidic Jew population, and he painted them again, pointing out that they have 8 to 10 children and might be on welfare. And like, hey, if you can't afford your kids, Okay, Andrew says he's a meathead who had a replacement ready before announcing he was deplatformed from Patreon. That was the part that I reached out and I'm like, hey, you want to tell me how you're doing this? Nick Shirley, thank you. It wasn't this guy. But anyway, this guy painted Hasidic Jews in a not great light and was taken off of Patreon for what's the phrase? It's anti-Semitic, for promoting anti. What is it? What's the word? Semitism. It's not Semitism. Something with an S. But basically got blocked for saying that Jews shouldn't have more kids when they're on welfare. And the thing, which I'm like, okay, it's Patreon, it's their platform, they can do whatever they want. The thing I thought was interesting is they didn't even give him like a warning shot or, hey, we're pulling your show tomorrow. Like, according now, as Andrew has said, maybe this guy's a meathead and maybe he's just spinning the story. You don't know. But just for me, I've never, and maybe I need to go ask Perplexity this, I've never heard Supercast pulling somebody off their platform, but I have heard that. The one that I thought was weird, there was a woman that was really popular on Patreon, and she did something in her life, not on her show, and it was something like she attacked a Greenpeace boat or something, and it was something she did in her life, not on her show, and because of something she did in her life, they kicked her off of Patreon. So, Andrew says he exploits differences for clout. He's still on YouTube. Yeah, he his whole thing now, 9 million subscribers currently. So he's not doing too bad. 9 million people. Holy cow. But I just thought it was interesting. The thing that caught my eye was that he got deplatformed and didn't get a warning, but it's their platform. You know, if they gave him a week, then they would get flack for giving him a week. But again,
well, you would also start doing stuff if they gave you a warning.
Yeah.
Right.
Oh, my favorite was Conan O'Brien when he found out he was losing the Tonight Show. Like his last 5 episodes, like he bought some sports car. He was just burning NBC money left and right. And I thought about this. Here we go. However you pronounce his last name, Oliveria, targets drug addicts, immigrants, minorities, and just demeans them. Well, that's nice. I someone say he's a slop doc YouTuber, and that was perfect. So, and they were, everybody on in the documentary I saw, they were like, dude, you're just clickbait. That's all you do is clickbait. Because he referred to the Jewish people as, Dan says, I'd be suspicious of no notice. Was it really no notice, or did he just not pay attention to the emails? That's a good point. And now he's turning himself into the victim. Help save me because I got kicked out from, big boy, Patreon picking on me. Yeah. So
we play right into this. The population plays right into this, unfortunately. We love a little drama. It was, who did Dirty Laundry? What's the
Don Henley.
Don Henley, Dirty Laundry.
Get the widow on the set.
No, right on. We love it. We rail against it when but then we find ourselves doing it too. You kind of like, we gravitate towards that. We don't need to, we don't want to, but we just do.
Yeah.
Well, and so
that's one of one of those things where, religion, sexual orientation, abortion, there are certain topics that if you start talking about them, you're going to lose 50% of your audience. And so by picking on like India, when you're talking about people throwing poop, it's not really religion. It's kind of something that I wouldn't want to partake in. And I'd have to go look at his channel and see what else he talked about. But it is, what's interesting? Like here's a guy that is saying, hey, I got kicked off of Patreon for no notice, with no notice. And because of AI and because I think of the current climate, we're all kind of going, really? Like, is he making it? Because, not everybody has, he might just be doing it for the clicks. You never know. The Danny Mo always makes it.
there's
Go
a
ahead.
thin line between clickbait and the rest of that stuff, right? You know, I watch some YouTubers who are pretty, pretty up and up, pretty
Oh
decent
yeah.
people, but they'll do some clickbait from time to time, and you're like, did you really need to put that title in there? And then what's the difference? That's a slippery slope to start creating content that will be controversial, right? I mean, all they're trying to do is get the description or the comments fired up. That's right. That's the trick to the algorithm on YouTube, is get your get those the comments fired up on a video. It's so funny. I try with my audience on Home Gadget Geeks. I have tried to get them to comment, and actually, this is the same thing with this group that's here.
Right.
We've tried to get you guys to comment on the videos on YouTube. Now you can't do it live, and it's too bad that our chat doesn't make its way into some form of comments. Like, I wish we'd get a little bit more credit for the chat like they do for the comments. If this chat got copy and pasted into the comments, YouTube would love the video, right? They love that kind of stuff. So, but you can kind of tell, you can kind of tell on some of those folks. I've tried getting my audience to leave comments. They just won't do it. They'll send me an email instead. I'm like, no, put that in the comments. I'll talk to you there. I want to, but some folks just won't do it. But in this culture, for a lot of these YouTubers, that it's just they're trying to incite a riot. I mean, they're just shouting fire in a crowded theater and hoping that it generates comments, right? And you know what we do? we can't stop ourselves from typing, right? Not you, obviously not you,
Right.
who just said to me, well, I never do those kinds of things, Jim. Well, no, we do. We can't help ourselves. Oh no, I'm gonna blah 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 because I'm so right, blah 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 blah. If we just didn't do anything, that stuff wouldn't get any promotion.
Yeah.
No.
Well, John points out, I've never heard of this person. Sydney Watson never posted anything on Patreon, but people complained what she produced on other platforms, and Patreon canceled her account. Sorry, but screw you, Patreon. We actually do get comments. If we go over here, one of them was from the one and only Danny Brown. And I started looking this. He mentioned this was back when we were talking about PM moving to New York. He said it'll be interesting to see how PM evolves. I know a lot of people aren't attending it anymore. I am not going to Austin, and I will officially say I wish I was going to Austin. I wasn't going to Austin because I heard horror stories about trying to get a hotel during South by Southwest, so I didn't even try. And now I'm wishing, because Apple's doing a talk there and a couple other things, and I was like, this is the first podcast movement I've ever missed. So if I don't know, Tom and Brian were like, and plus they made the tickets free. I mean, so the only thing holding me back was the hotel. But speaking of comments, this came in from Accomplished Time over on Reddit. When researching topics for podcasts, I noticed something interesting. YouTube comments often contain questions listeners still have, things they disagree with, topics they want expanded, but scrolling through hundreds of comments is messy. And this is where I just want to go, come on now. You got to do a little work. Like, let me guess, you want AI to take all the questions from, I'm sure you could write this, to take all the questions in your comments and automatically email them to you. But he said, and that's what he did. So I built a small tool that clusters reoccurring themes from comments and shows what listeners keep bringing up. It's surprisingly useful, finding episode ideas, spotting audience frustration, seeing what topics resonate. Curious if other podcasters actually use comments as a way or an idea generator, or do they just ignore them? And then I thought this was interesting. He says, the app is now live. If you want to check it out, it's there, because that is self-promotion, and I don't expect that Reddit to stay up long, because in the old podcast Reddit, they don't stand for that kind of stuff. And so for me, that's why you go to forums. That's why you have your own Facebook or Heartbeat or Circle group, is for a place for people to leave comments. And yeah, so if you did an episode and somebody comes over here and says, hey, you didn't talk about so and so, well, yeah, then you should probably do you know, an episode on those questions. So, you know, Jim, do you ever look at, I guess you're with me. We don't get many comments. I went over, there are about 5 or 6. I did hear that if you put out a YouTube video, and here's the funny thing, I went into content, I went to live, I'm looking at all these places, I'm like, where are my comments? They're right on the front page when you go to your YouTube channel. Just scroll down a little. They're right there on the right. And so they say that when you release a video, you should be over watching the comments to comment immediately if somebody comments. Sure. And I was like, I do not do that. I'm busy editing the show while this podcast is live for the first hour. I'm working on the edit stuff. So, you know.
I thought about, for a while, I would release the show Saturdays right after this. So I'd do like 1 p.m. Central. I'd release Home Gadget Geeks. And then I would release it as a premiere. And I would say, if you miss the live show, come join me for the premiere. I'll be in the comments, so that we could treat the comments like
a forum,
a chat room. Yeah, like a chat room, so to speak. And so they could, as I was sitting there during the premiere, I could be answering their questions in the comments live. I don't know. I think Home Gadget Geeks is a little vanilla, and we don't necessarily invoke a lot of subjects that people want to talk about for whatever reason at times. And so I just don't know if the show I do is that comment worthy in a lot of cases. You're just kind of like, oh, we just have a good time. It's a fun show. We have a good time doing it. But I mean, I don't make it controversial. There's not a lot of things to necessarily comment on maybe. And so that doesn't do it. But that's one technique I've tried. I kind of moved away from it because it was a whole nother hour and a half of my, you know how this goes. It's a whole nother hour and a half, and wasn't seeing a ton of return on it. So we just kind of put it to bed for now. In the future, if I did podcast in retirement, and I was trying to really blow this thing up, that would probably be something I'd go back to. Yeah. Give that a try to see if I can engage folks in that way.
Yeah. Well, Tyler is still bringing in comments here. Andrew says over 9 million subscribers, and he needs your financial support for spring break. That's a good point. Ralph brings up a good point. If we don't talk about those, religion, politics, abortion, sexual stuff, then the bots win. That's true, but just like I love Jen Briney. She does Congressional Dish, and she reads the bills that go through Congress. I will say she used to be, she would just read the bill and explain what it was, and she's got a lot more of her opinion in that show than she used to, and I'm not listening as much because I don't want you to tell me what to think. I want you to tell me what the bill said. But I love Jen because she's in politics. I mean, you can't be any more in politics than Jen Briney, and yet she still has a hard time because she'll say something that the Republicans did something stupid because, the Republicans did something stupid. And then she'll point out that the Democrats did something stupid because, the Democrats did something stupid. And every time she points or fires at one side, the other side comes out in droves just to tell her how stupid she is, even though she'll be like, look, it's here, page 6, paragraph 3, sentence 2, And so if you're talking about those things, that's what you're going to get into. Danny has a great quote. Ricky Gervais, who I love, has a great quote. Comedy should punch up, never punch down. And that applies to any kind of content creation. And then Ralph is saying, why is that an issue? If you get people to comment, then you are driving engagement. And I really don't see an issue. I'm not sure what you said about that.
I think I'm referring to you're creating drama so people will add comments so it'll drive the algorithm and create more. I mean, yeah, it's a way. It is a way. I think it's cheap. I think it's cheap. It's like the clickbait. It's like the clickbait titles in YouTube, right?
Yeah.
You're kind of like, can you do it? Should you do it? I don't know. You decide. I'm saying for me personally, it's cheap. Like, it's kind of like, again, that's for me personally. I'm just like, I see those things and I'm like, I'm a little disappointed with some of my YouTube friends who I watch all the time. And I'm like, really? Like, did you really need to put that title in there to create drama that didn't exist? I'm going to watch you anyways, but it's just, listen, I understand the system has to be gamed if you're going to do these.
Right. Welcome to YouTube.
I get it. I understand. I just don't, me personally, I just look at those things and go, really? Did we really need that? You know?
Dan has the same reaction. He says, I know I'm old because when I see a clickbait title on YouTube, I won't watch it out of spite. And I know on Facebook, I will see something and it's like about the Beatles or whatever. This guy's the best guitarist. And I click on it. And the minute I go to the page, I'm like, they got me. It's just nothing but ads. And the story isn't even the story. It's like, look what Priscilla Presley looks like after her weight loss. She showed up in this awesome gown and looks amazing. You click on it, and it's like an article about celebrities who are married to their childhood sweetheart. And you're like, wait, that's not even what the title was. And I'm like, they got me. So Andrew says, pleasure derived by someone from another person's misfortune, a business that thrives on Schadenfreude. It's fun just to say Schadenfreude. Try to work that in your day. So yeah. And Jody says, yep, it is hard to get people to comment. Yeah. And then Dan says, hence why I don't hardly watch any YouTube. Yeah. It's all clickbaity titles. And I think part of that.
No, not all of it is. No, I disagree. I think there's some YouTubers
right who
do a nice job of not doing that. Unfortunately, listen, there's a couple guys that I really, really like, and they have lifestyle blog podcasts YouTube. Sorry to use that
don't
word.
get me started.
Sorry. Sorry, Dave. My apologies. Didn't mean it. Didn't mean to apply that YouTube is a podcast. Okay. Whew. But both of them have gotten clickbaity, and I'm like, friends, and I still watch them, but it's just to me, just like, come on, you didn't need that. Just give us, and they're not all. I'm looking at my YouTube feed right now. You don't do that when you post the show. When we do Ask the Podcast Coach, you could use a clickbaity title like, disagreements over religion in podcasting. A couple weeks ago we talked a lot about religion. You could do that. Was that the content? No. And so you did a nice job of getting an adequate title for it. Again, can you do this? Sure. Right. I'm just saying, I don't like it. It's just not my favorite thing. And, Dan in chat saying he doesn't like it either. And I think there are a group of people who do that when we listen. I'll leave it at that.
Yeah. Well, John, this is kind of the attitude you have to have. John from Boomer Bunker says, I talk about news, politics, and sometimes religion. I don't care if I have a big audience. My audience are my people. Yep. Jody's going to be at Pod Summit in Calgary along with Danny up there in Canada. Nice. Craig says, we keep away from politics and news because our podcast is evergreen. Yep, there you go. Yeah. So that'll be
your
fun.
Choice. You can do what you want. Don't hear us saying what you can or can't do. You can do what you want. Just saying what I don't like.
Yeah. I finally figured out, Danny says that poster on Reddit should have been removed. That's against the rules on that subreddit. And for the longest time, I was trying to figure out what OP stood for. It's original poster, I believe is what that stands for.
Okay. I thought it was Ocean Pacific. Just
that could be.
Remember the old OP brand? That was a great brand. Where did they go? Yeah,
that's true. Well, same thing with Snapple. If I want Snapple tea with lemon, I don't know. Did Wendy get canceled for something? I don't know. Did she say something wrong? Here's a question. How are we doing on time? Good. I've decided I will not be a guest on a show which does not require a pre-interview. What are your thoughts? It's a thing. I'm part of the Podcast Professionals Association, and they had somebody come in talking about guesting. And, You have to figure out, why am I doing this? And if the goal is I want to sell more books, then you need somebody who's looking for a strategy. So great. When you go to a show and it seems like a good fit and you listen to some of their episodes, that's a key. And you notice that most of this is, Jim, today we're going to talk about your story, and how Jim started as, blah, blah, and his time in the Army and blah, 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 and moving, blah, whatever. And it's inspiring. It's a story how Jim came from, his meager upbringing to, blah, whatever it is. And it's inspiring and motivational. Great. You're not going to sell any books with that, because those people need inspiration, not your how-to stuff in your book. So I was like, that's probably a good point. And in the same way that I am super picky now about my guests, I should be more picky about where I guest on, although I will talk to anybody. So that's my problem. But I know when I'm a host, if I don't know somebody, I will say, hey, here's the deal. I will be happy to interview you. We need to do a pre-interview. And even if we do the interview, I reserve the right to not publish this in the event the content doesn't fit my audience. And I've only had one person that said, how dare you? Everybody else is like, oh yeah, because if they've done their homework, they know they can bring value. So I would, it's a thing that nobody wants to do. The guest doesn't want to go listen to a bunch of episodes to find out, oh, this isn't a good fit. And the host doesn't want to go listen to a bunch of old interviews or go listen to their show because, well, what if this person's not a good fit? Then I just wasted an hour and a half. I will say, and you'll hear me talk about this on Monday's show, I met Jana in person from Big Lash Energy. And I remember saying to her, you got to come on my show. And so a fair amount of time went by. She said, hey, I met you a while back and you said I should come on your show because I have these kind of wacky ways of promoting my show. And I'm like, sure. And in my head, I'm like, I remember you. I remember you were in Orange. I remember you bought a book. And she was really cool, but I didn't really remember what the content was. And the interview kind of snuck up on me. And I was like, oh crap, I'm interviewing this person. And I never did my research. So where do you turn to? Our good friend ChatGPT. And I said, ChatGPT, I'm interviewing Jana Marie from the Big Lash Energy Show. Give me some questions that she hasn't been asked before. And it gave me some questions, and they weren't great, but they weren't bad. But luckily, oh so luckily, we had a technical problem. We couldn't, wherever she was at, she didn't have great bandwidth. And so that gave me a week to go listen to her last couple episodes. And I went back and listened to her first episode, which was mind-blowing. And I was like, oh, this is going to be so much. Because I remember I had asked her about how she creates an episode and this and that. Well, that's the whole thing she does. She scripts them. They're well-written. They're funny. So, but that took the better part of, a couple nights to go through her stuff. Nobody wants to do that. But the interview was so much better because I did the work. One of the reasons Jordan Harbinger's show is so good is because if he has an author on the show, he reads their book. Now he may listen to it really fast, but it's kind of a no-win situation because we're all strapped for time. But to really, be a good guest, I should know who I'm talking to, which I'm amazed at how many people don't let me know, like, what's the audience here? Or they'll go, oh, it's primarily women. Like, that's not what I mean. I mean, that helps. I don't know. Jim, when you do interviews, like, you kind of know these people. I think in your case, you're up to date with them and who they are. I think you've kind of, through osmosis, kind of done your own research.
Yeah. We at work, we sometimes do pre-calls. So sometimes we don't. In a lot of cases, we did do pre-calls with them just because, I wanted them to know, hey, if you can show up with a microphone of some kind, even a headset, that'd be great. Here's the content we're going to talk about. I almost always work with a guest co-host. And so I want the guest co-host to be in line with the things that we're talking about and some of the work that we're doing and those pieces. So yeah, the pre-interview is super important. I did an interview just a couple months ago. No, a couple months ago, right during Christmas time. And he was kind of a big deal, and I got one shot at him. So I was like, we didn't do, but he's been on a ton of podcasts, and I was comfortable with who he was and how he did it. I mean, that as the producer host, right? That's really my role at Gallup, is to produce and host. I was comfortable that the production piece was going to be fine. And then the co-host, it was his responsibility to make sure the questions were lined up. So yeah, it came out really well. I don't disagree. I think a pre-call is a good way. I disagree with you a little bit. Here's some clickbait for you, Dave. Here's some clickbait.
All right.
Jim and Dave disagreed on. I don't think you have to always do a ton of research on your guests, because sometimes that allows you to ask some great questions because you didn't study, you're not predisposed to ask all the same questions or whatever, right? However, that's a double-edged sword. You can end up asking stupid questions that, because you didn't do any research, you should have known better not to ask those stupid questions. Right?
Yeah, I'd have to go back and find it, but I did, because I hadn't listened to her show yet. I asked her a question, something about, I forget what it was, guess, because I saw her titles where she talked about, like, whatever, Jill's horrible boyfriend, whatever. And I'm like, oh, she must have interviewed Jill. She didn't. Jill was a friend of hers, and she was telling the story. So when I started to ask her about guests, she was probably thinking, this guy hasn't listened to my show, because if he had, he'd know I don't have guests. And so, yeah. Jody says, I think it's a great rule of thumb. She's always done one. If you go to voiceoversandvocals.com, I've actually been on her show. She says, but it helps make your guests much more comfortable with how things will go beforehand. That's true too. Danny's
Home Gadget Geeks doesn't have, like, I just have rotating hosts.
Yeah.
So I don't have to worry. Like, that's, for me, that's I have probably 10 hosts that I rotate through, and I'll do a guest interview. I get those emails too from people who are like, hey, I'd be a great fit for your show.
Of course.
1 in 50 I respond to, and I'm like, yeah, actually you would be. Then lately I've been going back to them and saying, I have this kind of formatted text that I say, hey, I just want to be really clear. We record live on Thursday nights, so I would need you in this time slot. We can't schedule around. I know you're busy, so we can't schedule around your busy schedule. And we're a mid-range podcast. We do somewhere between 500 and 600 downloads an episode. We're not huge. And so that tends to not, like, I send that email and then I never hear from him again. So, and which is fine. I don't want to, I don't want to misrepresent the podcast. I want them to come because it's a community. Like, it's a very engaged community. It's a lot of guys that spend a lot of money on technology, right? So it's worth coming to talk to, but you got to know what you're in for. So that's been I probably only hear back from 1 in 5 once I do respond to them. So they must just be blasting it out to everybody, hoping that they get a few. Then I get the feeling when you write back, then they dig into your podcast and be like, okay, is it the right market for me? Does it have enough reach? And I just don't. On Home Gadget Geeks, I just don't. I do that, and I do kind of do that intentionally. But then I never heard back from them again. But that's 1 in 50, maybe, Dave, of the emails that I get.
Well, I misunderstood, because I thought Ralph was saying I won't go on a show unless I do a pre-interview with him. He's saying is that you owe it to your audience to make sure your guest brings value. If I don't know somebody, that's where I do the whole, we're doing a pre-interview / that's
not a bad idea. If out of the blue somebody asks you to be on their podcast, to say, yeah, but I don't do it without a chat, because you could be setting yourself up for disaster.
Yeah,
and I've done a few interviews where I was like, I've done one where I said, when we got done, I was like, you can't use this. You can't. I appreciate this, or I need to approve this before you release it. Like, it was such a different interview, right? And they gave me the audio, and I said, "Hey, I'm sorry, I can't let you release this. This is not going to work for me."
Yeah.
And so that happens too. You gotta be careful with that. So with Ralph, I don't disagree. I think that's a great way to, especially with your own brand, your own personal brand, make sure it's just a good check, just to make sure there's some, I think Jody said this, that there's some chemistry there, right? And that it's going to work.
Yeah. Jody says the topic of my podcast, again, voiceoversandvocals.com, is very specific. I have to do a pre-chat to make sure it's a good fit and let my guests know how things usually go so they're comfortable when they're doing the recording. Jeff C. comes in, and with a mic dropping moment, you have to do things that don't scale if you want to stand out. Amen, brother. Absolutely. Yeah. So I've been on shows, because there are times I'll go look at their show and I'm like, well, their show is about something that's not podcasting. And I'm like, but they do a podcast. And I'm like, okay. And then I show up and they ask a bunch of questions that seem really specific to their show. And I get done and I'm like, oh, that was just podcast consulting. And then it just so happens that they never released that episode. And I'm like, oh, okay, I see what you did there. But Jody says it does depend on the guest. Of course, it's a podcast question, so it always depends. I've re-interviewed people who have been on my show 2 years ago without another pre-chat. Yeah, once you have the established relationship, Andrew with a nice callback says, pre-screen question with what, are you a fan of kids?
That's a good way.
Nicely
done.
Monty Python. The Holy Grail, the movie, was if I would take a date, like second or third date, you have to sit through a Monty Python movie, and if you don't like it, I just know that's a big red flag.
That's a great idea.
Yeah. Craig says there is a point of diminishing returns when it comes to interview prep. You can. There is the Larry King approach, like you mentioned. Some people want to go in blind, so they're just like the audience. And I'm like, that sounds to me like you're going to end up doing a lot more editing.
Curious, though. You're a lot more curious. Right?
Yeah.
You follow when you don't prep, you follow more rabbit trails, and that can be good and bad, right?
Yeah.
You can get to the end and you're like, your audience would be like, how come you didn't ask him this, the really important question, and you're like, oh, because I didn't study,
Yeah. Craig says, assuming your guest has been on a podcast before, it's a good idea to ask them questions they haven't been asked before. Yep. And I always ask, if somebody asks me, I'm like, can you send me a link to your latest interview? Because I want to hear if you're not coming on my show, and then there are brilliant people that think not words could, out of mouth speak. You know what I mean? You're like, they're just not good at saying things. So that's another thing I'm always looking for.
Well, you should study too. Listen, I made the mistake of not studying the podcast before I go on.
Yeah.
And I should have listened to a few episodes, or at least skimmed through them to have an idea of what the host is like. And I made that mistake, and that's painful. That is painful.
I have a playlist in my Pocket Cast now called Future Interviews. And the minute I'm going on somebody's show, I grab their latest episode and throw it in there. And that's kind of what Ralph is saying. I think the pre-interview from both directions, I think it's a great idea. But I also know some people are really busy. And so here I go. It depends. If I know them, I don't need a pre-interview. But if it's somebody new, but I've heard their show, this is where your reputation from your show can help build, do I want to go on that or not? Because in some cases I trust them already because I trust their content, so it depends. But yeah, if it's somebody I don't know, then I might go that route. I would just want to throw one more here as we start to head out the door. Do you know how much money an audio podcast picks up on your program? Glad they do it, but I wonder if they should kick back a few bucks to the producer. I mean, they're using my content. You're getting paid in exposure, which unfortunately is not accepted at most grocery stores, and they're getting content. So that's kind of the deal for that. But it'd be nice if they kick back, but that's why you got to ask for it. Whether it's buy my stuff, become an awesome supporter at askthepodcastcoach.com/awesome, that whole 9 yards. Jim, what's coming up on theaverageguy.tv?
Yeah, I took a week off. Is that amazing? I mean, yes,
What?
as a podcaster, you can't. I've been doing more of that lately, and took the week off. But it gives my audience oftentimes is a couple weeks behind, so it gives them a chance to catch up, and gave me a chance to have the night off. And by the way, 90 minutes in this chair and circle back around to the beginning of the show. It's an awesome chair. So make sure you're thinking about the technology that goes into your desk chair.
Yeah, if you take a week off, put out an episode that says, hey, no show today, had some things happen, but go to mywebsite.com/follow, follow the show, and you can see all of my past episodes and pick your favorite. Let me know which one you found that you hadn't heard before, blah, 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 and give them some homework. That's an option. Sure. If you want to do that. You already know what's coming up on Monday's show. I interviewed Jana Marie from the Big Glass Energy. It's a fun interview. We talked for 2 hours, and I cut it down. It's a little longer than usual. It's going to be close to an hour by the time it's done, but some really interesting ideas. The most unique, because of my podcast story, ever. Like, what? So that's kind of, she had 2 of them that are really cool. So that'll be coming out on Monday's School of Podcasting. Go to schoolofpodcasting.com/follow. Thanks to the awesome chat room today. Always great to have everybody here. And I've got another 10 seconds. I guess this is where I tap dance or something like that. Be sure to like, subscribe, and ring the bell. I know, I'm sorry for all you audio listeners. You just figured out we're doing this on YouTube. But you can do that. And I just saw a like go through, so thank you for that. And we will see you next week with another fun-filled episode of Ask the Podcast Coach. Hopefully, I'll be back pain-free.